Okay, this is first part of your journeys video. I'm gonna make two-part video. In this video, I'm gonna be reading you your vocabulary and context, as well as previewing the topic with you, and reading the first half of your story. So feel free to pause it whenever you need to, or stop reading whenever you feel like you need a break. Ideally, you should be splitting your reading up into 3 days. I know some of you could get it done in 2 days, but anyways, I'm going to read, like I said, read the first half of the story with you, and also go over your vocab and your preview the topic. So let's start with the vocabulary. First word is painstaking. Long ago, books were made through painstaking process of copying by hand. Now, painstaking means that it's kind of self-explanatory. It took a lot of pain and effort to do something. Okay. Number two, exploded. The number of digital books exploded once electronic readers became more affordable. So exploded can mean literally an explosion, a chemical explosion, with fire, or it could mean figuratively, meaning something grew really, really fast. You could use the word exploded. You could say, for example, cell phones just immediately exploded into the market, and everyone was using iPhones and smartphones. So that would be another example of using the word exploded. Okay, number three, submitted. These drawings have been submitted for judging in an art contest. The same way you guys submit me work when you're done with it, or you hand in homework. It's another word for saying handing in. You submit it, okay? Negotiations. That's working out a deal, okay? The negotiations between the writer and publisher lasted for hours before they agreed. So a lot of times people will negotiate, they will talk back and forth until both people or parties agree on what they want, okay? And that's what negotiating is all about. That's what I try to get you guys to do a lot. Talk out your problems and negotiate. If you guys are in a disagreement about something, rather than resorting to violence or aggression, okay? Collaborate. Architects and construction workers collaborate to make new buildings. That means working together. So it takes more than one group of people to build a building. You have the architect who designs the building, and then the construction worker who actually does the actual labor, physical labor of building a building, okay? So collaborating, come together and working together to complete something, okay? Repetitive means the same thing over and over again, okay? The repetitive exercise of writing his name over and over caused his hand to hurt. Sometimes repetition can be good. That's why I like you guys to do your vocabulary words and your spelling words over and over again so it gets in your head. Math also requires a lot of repetition sometimes, just so you remember the steps to do it, or if you're memorizing multiplication or a division table. But sometimes something that's repetitive can get old, and it's not a good thing. You don't want to keep watching same TV show again. I mean, unless you really like it, then of course, maybe you'd want to watch it again. But repetitive just means repetition over and over again. Number 7 is appealing. The library is an appealing place because of its calm and quiet atmosphere. If something's appealing, it's pleasing to the eye. It makes you want to go there or do that activity. So sometimes, and I know most of you like to play video games, it's appealing to you, okay? If a new game or a new game system comes out, the designer or the manufacturer is going to make it appealing because they want to sell their product, okay? Next word is complement. The designers created a stage props to complement the mood of the play. Now, there's two types of compliment. You could give somebody a compliment, saying a nice comment about how they look or something good they did, make them feel good about themselves. But you could also use it in this, like in this sentence, the stage props complement the mood of the play. It means they add to the mood of the play. They're a nice addition to it, okay? Appropriate. It was appropriate that he scored low on the test since he did not study for it. Appropriate means something that's, obviously, I talk to you guys a lot about being inappropriate. There's a time and a place for everything. There's certain language we don't use in class, so that's a good example of being appropriate and not appropriate. But also something that's appropriate to a situation. If you're not going to study for a test, it's kind of makes sense that you're not going to probably do good in it, right? If you study hard for a test and you put in the work, it's going to be appropriate that you're going to score good on a test, okay? Last word is impaired. This physically impaired athlete competes in a wheelchair race, and you can see the picture. They don't have the use of their legs. So if you're impaired in some way, it means you have some sort of obstacle or barrier that's stopping you from being doing something, okay? So you could be physically impaired, mentally impaired, even visually impaired. I have glasses, that means I'm visually impaired. So there's a lot of different examples of being impaired or having some sort of a handicap that's an obstacle for you throughout life, okay? So that's it for the vocabulary and context. Now I want you guys to flip to page 77 where the preview of the topic. This story is going to be about books. Okay, so I'm just going to start reading. You can follow along with me. Creating books has changed much since the early days of writing, with a sharp tool and a clay block. Throughout history, however, some things have remained the same. Every book begins with an idea and someone to put that idea into writing. Planning and producing a book, whether by printing or preparing it as an ebook, requires many work of many talented individuals. In the making of a book, you'll learn part of the history of books. You'll also learn about the steps taken to turn an author's manuscript into a book. Okay. The making of a book. And our essential question is, how have books changed over time? So that's what I want you guys to think about as you're reading either along with me or by yourself. How have books changed over time? Okay. Chapter 1, the beginning. When you walk into a bookstore or a library, you may see thousands of books lining the shelves. Each book that you see began as an idea in someone's mind. Ideas for books come from many different experiences. For example, someone might notice a large empty bird's nest in a tree and be inspired to write a scary story that takes place in an abandoned... Oops, sorry, I lost my place here. For example, someone might notice a large empty bird's nest in a tree and be inspired to write a nonfiction book about migrating birds. Someone else might write a scary story that takes place in an abandoned cabin after reading a newspaper article about an old rundown house. So there's inspiration for when people write. A lot of the times they get real life inspirations, okay? It sometimes takes a writer months or even years to organize his or her ideas and to write about them. Then many people work together to turn the writer's work into an actual book. That is what book publishing is all about. Keep reading to learn about the history of publishing and how an idea in a writer's mind becomes a book you can borrow from the library, buy at your favorite store, or download as an ebook. On to page 81. The heading is Early Books from Clay to Paper. You guys could see the pictures of a clay tablet. Ancient Egyptians used to use those a lot. Another picture says papyrus roll fragment. That was before they had paper. It was a different kind of more soft texture than clay that ancient civilizations also used to write on. Okay, I'm going to start reading now. You could follow along with me. The oldest known books were written in ancient Mesopotamia on clay blocks called tablets. While a tablet was wet, the writer would use a special tool called a stylus to write on it. I know you guys have worked with clay. You guys shape it and sculpt it when it's wet, right? And then once it dries, it's hard. You can't really do anything to it anymore without it breaking. So it's the same concept. He or she would press the point of the stylus into the clay to make marks. If the writing did not fit on one tablet, the writer would start a new one and give it a number. Put together, the tablets would be similar to a book with numbered pages. After the writer finished writing each tablet, he or she would place it in the sun or into a special oven called a kiln to harden. The same thing we do with in Mr. Tony's class, for art. He usually leaves them out. I'm not sure if he uses an oven to harden them, but if you leave them out in the sun long enough, they will dry and harden. The dried tablets could last a long time. Many of them have been discovered and are still readable today. Later, Egyptian papyrus roll came into use. The papyrus roll was a step closer to the modern printing books. Papyrus is a type of plant and the ancient Egyptians used to make paper. Pieces of papyrus were pasted together, written on with a brush and colored inks, and then rolled up. The Greeks and Romans also used the papyrus roll. After the papyrus roll came parchment, another type of paper. Parchment was made from stretched animal skin, which was better for writing because it had a smooth surface that absorbed ink well. It could also be scrubbed clean and reused. Okay. Before 1450, there were only a few thousand books in Europe because each one had to be handwritten by professionals called scribes. It was a painstaking process. By the late 1400s, however, the printing press had been invented in Germany, and the number of books had exploded. Remember, I said what that word means, exploded. It could mean it just exploded into the market. It grew really, really fast. So by year 1500, about 9 million books had been printed. So just think about that. In span of 50 years, from 1450 to 1500, it grew from just a few thousand to about 9 million books. Okay? So now let's turn to the next page, page 82. It shows you a picture of an early printing press. Okay? This allowed people to publish things much faster because they were able to do it. They were able to press down, and all the print from the last copy was already on there. Okay? From about 1550 until 1800, most publishers used the same method for printing books, a machine called a printing press. Each letter in a book was carved out of wood or metal and then set into a flat surface called a planten. This planten held all the words for one page of writing. The letters were then covered with ink and pressed against paper. The result was one printed page, but the page could be printed over and over to make copies. To make the next page, however, the letters had to be removed and reset into new words. So it wasn't as efficient as a copy machine that we have today, but it was still faster than writing it from hand, from scratch, all over again. Printers used a similar process to put illustration or pictures in books. A picture was carved into a piece of wood called a woodcut. The woodcut was covered with a roller dipped in ink and then pressed against the paper. A woodcut could be used over and over again. With the invention of the printing press, printers could meet the public's demand for books. Books were mostly made with hard covers until the 1950s, when paper covers became popular. Paperback books were cheaper to make and buy than hardcover books. They were also easier to carry. Most paperbacks were and still are the reprint of books that were originally hardcover. So your Journeys books are hardcover. Your the books that you read the stories out of that we're reading right now. A softcover book would be an example of your Reader's Notebook or another softcover book, like your math books are softcovered as well, and your social studies and your science books are all softcovered. So softcovered books have become very popular lately. Like they said, it's cheaper to make, it's easier to carry, it's lighter. One advantage a hardcover does give you is it gives you more protection. We're going to stop there, and I'll pick up tomorrow with Chapter 2, Modern Publishing. Thank you for watching.